Acting president receives new ECOWAS chairman, says Nigeria will continue to play active role in the regional body.
Federal Executive Council approves ratification of all international treaties on protection of intellectual property.
House of Representatives passes Northeast Development Commission bill at third reading.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on the recall of suspended judges, plus rising cases of kidnapping of school children.
Now, just yesterday, the 6 judicial officers suspended by the National Judicial Council in November 2016 resumed duty after 8 months.
Yes, Kyria. Now, the 6 judges who resumed duty were among the 8 who were earlier apprehended after men and officers of the Department of State Services stormed their residences and then removed money and documents on suspicion of corruption. Now, the judges were subsequently suspended.
Now, the resumption to their judicial duties followed the decision of NJC to recall them at its 82nd meeting due to what it called lack of case against them.
In addition, the NJC said that of the suspended judges, only 3 were indeed charged to court. And one of them, Justice Ademola, was later discharged and acquitted of the corruption charges against him.
And yes, Kingsley, you know, the other reasons given by the NJC include the backlog of cases in the suspended judicial officers' courts for the past 8 months, which desire adequate attention in view of the fact that justice delayed is justice denied.
But the decision of the NJC to recall the suspended justices has no doubt generated mixed reactions, as some persons see it as a welcome development, while others feel that the reasons advanced by the NJC are not cogent enough in their view to warrant the recall of the officers to the bench.
And the questions yearning for answers include why recalling all the suspended judges even when some are still having cases pending in court? Will their recall to the bench not affect the integrity of the judiciary and impressions of the people on the dispensation of justice?
Well, Kyria, now the recall of the suspended judges is not the only issue for our conversation segment on the program today. We'll also intend to examine the rising cases of kidnap of school children.
Yes, you know, the rising cases of kidnapping of school children, no doubt, has become a source of concern to Nigerians.
Just recently, 6 senior secondary school pupils of the Lagos Model College in Bonla at Ekpe were abducted, and of course, their captors are demanding millions of naira as ransom.
Yes, Kingsley, you know, this is the second time such incident has occurred in the college within 1 year. Saw the abduction of 2 teachers and 4 students. And
of course, we also recall what happened in Ikorodu, where it's the junior seminary where kidnappers also raided the institution and then took away some students. Now, of course, the question to ask now is why have school children suddenly become the target of kidnappers in recent times? And what makes the schools so vulnerable as to be easily breached, as it were, by kidnappers? This is Good Morning Nigeria, and I'm Kingsley Osadolo. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the program today.
And I am Kirian Umayo, thanking you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria, which is coming to you live on the network service of the Africa's largest TV network, the NTA. As usual, in the course of today's program, we shall bring to you our companion segments, which include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign and entertainment news. And it's now time for the Good Morning News, which of course will be brought to you by Lydia Bassi. It's over to you, Lydia.
Thank you, Kirian. Good morning. Acting President Professor Yemi Osinbajo says Nigeria will continue to play an active role in ECOWAS in order to address regional issues and explore resolutions in partnership with other member states. He said this while receiving the Togolese President Faure Gnassingbé at the presidential villa. A statement by Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to the acting president, Laolu Akonde, indicates that Professor Osinbajo congratulated the Togolese president on his election as the chairman of ECOWAS and called for continued consultations on the issue of the economic partnership agreement between ECOWAS and the European Union. The statement adds that President Gnassingbé expressed Togo's commitment to strengthening ties with Nigeria, giving Nigeria's role as an important player in the region. A breather is on the way for the creative industry in Nigeria as the Federal Executive Council approves the ratification of all international treaties relating to the protection of intellectual property in which Nigeria is signatory to.
As far as the copyright of their productions are concerned. So Nigeria has been a signatory to those treaties internationally and international conventions. We have a responsibility to ensure that they take benefit and enjoy the advantages associated with the Nigerian commitment of being a signatory to those treaties.
The Southeast Development Commission bill has passed second reading at the Senate. The bill seeks to act as a catalyst to develop the commercial potential of the Southeast geopolitical zone. This passage came 6 days after the bill was rejected in the House of Representatives.
The Senate is in the right position to show maturity in the face of the plethora of problems and challenges facing the geopolitical zone.
Those in favor that this bill be read the second time say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has passed 5 bills at third reading. They include the bill for an act to establish the Northeast Development Commission.
Because of the level of destruction occasioned by the Boko Haram insurgency on the infrastructure of the region, there is a need for us to have a legal framework that will aid in the reconstruction and rehabilitation of the Northeast.
Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonnaya has received the new electronic voting machine designed and constructed by the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI. The solar-powered electronic voting solution with robust hard and software components was specifically developed to address the challenges of voting process in Nigeria.
NASENI again was able to show Nigerians that we are gradually coming of age, that many of the technical problems, many of the technological problems that we have in our country, that we have the capacity to solve these problems.
In 2015, the National Biosafety Management Act geared towards addressing risks that may likely arise from the practice of biotechnology and genetically modified organisms was enacted. 2 years on, a group of civil society organizations are calling for its review, citing deficiencies in the Act and concerns over the dangers inherent in the use of GMOs for health and the environment.
These GMO foods, when you plant it, they don't self-proliferate. That means when it grows, you cannot take those seeds and plant them again. You have to go back to these companies and buy it. Now, those inputs are priced in dollars. So you are giving up your food sovereignty by adopting this technology.
One National Assembly to abolish that law that set up the National Biosafety Management Agency, or at the very least, critically review it to remove all the ambiguities.
If somebody is going about saying the agency is not good, you have not even visited the agency to find out, to ascertain their level of preparedness or what they have on ground, You are talking about a law that took more than 15 good years to come into being.
And that's the news for now. Kirian and Kingsley will be back after this break. Good morning.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
To business now. Findings from investment and research firms suggest rising minimum wage may enhance Nigeria's economic recovery. Let's now join Amina Nujaim for details of these and more on the business segment.
Hello and welcome. Increasing workers' minimum wage might be the last dose of policy prescription needed to experience a full economic recovery. The Financial Derivatives Company Limited, FDC, a Lagos-based investment and research firm, stated this in its latest economic bulletin for May. According to the investment and research firm, a common thread to the introduction and increase of a minimum wage across the globe was the desire to compensate for a loss of purchasing power due to inflation. It stated that Nigeria shares this objective, fueled by frequent requests from labor unions for an upward review, adding that the outcry during the past 2 years was a potential trigger of social unrest. It would be recalled that the Federal Executive Council recently approved a 29-member committee to deliberate on the merits of an upward review in the minimum wage. The minimum wage is currently at 18,000 naira a month. And in other business developments, Nigerian National Accreditation Services, when fully operational, will address the issue of rejection of Nigerian products in the international market. This has become necessary to ensure seamless trade relations to remove Nigerian exporters from the disadvantage point. UNIDE's ECOWAS Regional Director speaks on the importance of accreditation to the overall country's program of UNIDO in Nigeria.
In the competitive world, in particular when we speak about the marketing, it is very important, as I said, that the customer will have to be ensured that the all products went through the necessary testing process.
Nigeria will join the rest of the world in marking the World Accreditation Day on Friday, the 9th of June, and tagged delivering confidence in construction and the built environment. Up next is a graphic summary of details of trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And that's it on Business News. I am Amina Nujaim.
All right, thank you very much there, Amina Nujaim, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Next for us, we're taking a look at the headlines on the front pages of some of today's newspapers. All right, let's take a look at the front pages of the papers that we have this morning. We have 5 papers, and All five papers have on their front pages the reactions of various senior citizens as well as interest groups to the ultimatum issued by some Arawa youth groups earlier. Now, that's the lead story for This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper has it as a double-decker headline. It says, "Leaders stand united against hate speech by Northern Group." Leaders stand united against hate speech by Northern Group. Now, there are three riders to that headline. The first says, "Federal government warns against undermining nation's peace," and El-Rufai orders arrest. El-Rufai is the governor of Kaduna State. Another rider there says, "Northern governors beef up security and counterparts in Southeast hold emergency meeting." Now, another rider says, "ACF, that's Arawa Consultative Forum, we appreciate frustrations of the youth, but will not condone breach of the law." That's from the lead story for This Day newspaper. It's also there on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper, just immediately below the nameplate of Daily Trust newspaper, and the headline is with a kicker, "Ultimatum to Igbo. Northern governors disown Arawa youth." Now, details of that story can be found on page 4. Kirian, I'm sure you have the same stories on your front pages. Yes.
On New Telegraph this morning, of course, the headline says, "Northern governors disown Arawa youth, call for probe." With a rider there, El-Rufai orders arrest, has of course read on This Day. Federal government says, "We won't tolerate breach of peace." Then Nigeria doesn't need provocation, says Atiku. And then the ACF, that's the Arawa Constitutive Forum. Now come back home, Mazof tells Ndibo. And below the photograph there, "Free our children from abductors. Parents beg government." The rider, "4 kidnapped pupils ill. Abductors suspend negotiations." That's on page 6. Now, above the nameplate, we have federal government sacks SON. That's a Standards Organization of Nigeria, NAFDAC, NDLEA, from ports. That's from Lagos ports, you know, possibly.
That's right. Just, Kirian, just before we bring in Bayo to discuss this, I'm sure you also have the Authority newspaper.
Yes.
The Authority newspaper also, let's take the headline, the one dealing with the leader's reaction to the ultimatum.
Yes, Authority newspaper says, "Situation under control," says federal government. Then the rider, "Northern governors disown youths." The North lacks 1967 coalition against Ndibo. That says Afenifere.
We also have that as a list story for the Punch newspaper. You can see that on the front page of the Punch newspaper. We can have that right there on the screen so that we go about to Bayo. It says, "Quit ultimatum to Igbo. Federal government, Northern governors, Afenifere, ACF and others condemn threat, and Northern youth leaders defy El-Rufai. Meet again and defend yourselves." Ohaneze youth wing tells Igbo in North. Of course, that's the story. Bayo, of course, we discussed this yesterday when we did our newspaper review, and then you made your own comments. You can see the various reactions. All the front pages have the stories of the reactions of various leaders. Let's get your take on this.
You can liken this to young men who all of a sudden found in their hands a very sharp axe and went to the forest trying to cut a very huge tree. Elders everywhere who know the implication of cutting a huge tree, the consequences and the damage it can cause, have raised alarm. And the Kaduna State government was the first to issue an order to the police to arrest the youths. And he has also ordered the Ministry of Justice to direct and prepare charges and prosecute those who are complicit in that egregious assault on the rights of fellow citizens. Spokesman for the Kaduna State Governor, Samuel Aroma, says that it was in contact with the Igbo community in Kaduna and had advised all residents to ignore the threat. On behalf of the Northern State Governors Forum, Governor Kashim Shettima has also said that they are stoking emotions of division and disunity. And they, as a representative of the people, can categorically say that they don't have the mandate of the people. Governors will safeguard the lives and property of all, and we are one nation tied to one destiny. Also, the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, has said President Muhammadu Buhari condemns such wicked plans by faceless youth groups and commends the Governor El-Rufai, for ordering the arrest of the miscreant of these jobless youths who are threatening the peace. Minister of Interior Abraham Dambazau has enjoined the Nigerians to discountenance all this. Another development, the governors of the five southeast states also held emergency meeting in Enugu. The President General of Hanese Ndigbo, Chief Nia Nwodo, also disclosed this and has also appreciated Governor El Rufai for his immediate action directing the arrest of the youth. Meanwhile, many associations have condemned it. They include the Arewa Consultative Forum, the Afenifere, the Board of Trustees of the one arm of the People Democratic Party, the Ohanese Ndigbo Youth, and Ijaw Youth Council, and as well as Pan-Nigeria Delta Forum. The danger here is that our youths, who are aspiring to be leaders of tomorrow, has not given the nations a concern to trust their quest for leadership. The youth have given us insurgency, the youth have given us militancy, the youth have given us armed robbery and kidnapping, and the latest, youth are giving us hate speeches, which is causing disquiet in the nation. I think the news must be called to order.
You know, one may even, ask, how did it all start? Because I want to believe that it all started from the social media, the conversations between, the different tribes and all of that. But one wonders how it got escalated to the point of giving an ultimatum.
Well, these are sequence of events. Apparently, they are reacting to persistent threat by separate groups calling for separation from Nigeria, and that, according to them, is the basis for which they are calling that, okay, if you want to be separated from Nigeria, leave our own claim of the country. But you don't, two wrongs, like all the prominent persons have said, do not make it right. This nation has a lot to gain from its diversity, and nobody should exploit the diversity to cause disunity.
What we have seen, that is in recent times, we have seen what has happened in the Northeast, where no fewer than 100,000 or more, depending on the estimates, persons have been killed as a result of the war being waged by Boko Haram insurgency against the country. Now, during the Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 1970, this country lost well over 2 million persons, according to some accounts. And then we see reports of all of this. We have seen, well, I'm sure those of them who are issuing the statements, or those of them who are, breathing, spitting fire, they were not born. They were not.
They are all under 50.
Yeah, they were not even around 25 years ago to see what happened in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in Europe. So I think that the way that the various leaders have risen to condemn all of this is very good. And then you can see almost immediately what the impact will be on the economy. We are saying, look, let's get out of recession. Now, if you are an investor, what will be your reaction to this kind of
already the Ohanese youth have declared that there are people who will not abandon their over 4 trillion investment in the northern Nigeria and move. But one point that must be illustrated, that two key proponents who have participated in the civil war have won this nation. The first is President Muhammadu Buhari, and he gave the instance that he walked on his foot from Ahwada up to Calabar as a soldier. And the agony he went through, he doesn't want any Nigerian to go through that. The other day, Senator Ken Namani said that, look, I fought in the war on the side of Biafra. I know what we went through, and I will not want anybody to go through that again. These are the experiences of people
war
who have war.
War is an ugly business.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
All right. Maybe we have to look at some of the headlines, or rather the stories making the rounds in some of these papers, like the Authority newspaper. I would like you to comment on the, on Authority. If you, on the left-hand side of the stories above the nameplate, why DSS should release Ifeanyi Ubah, by Inter-Society. Then following that is INEC registers 5 new political parties. And then after that we have federal government pays 20 whistleblowers about 376 million naira.
Yes.
Well, just before you let me also indicate that story on the payment to whistleblowers is also there on the front page of this day newspaper. It's just below the lead story. It says, after recovering 11.6 billion naira, federal government pays 375.8 million naira to, that's on the front page of this day. That's where I'm reading from now. Earlier, the one Kirian read was from the Authority. That is, after recovering 11.6 billion naira, federal government pays 375.8 million to 20 whistleblowers.
Yes, the immediate reaction of people is to compute how much is going to each whistleblower, but it doesn't work out that way. If you look at the percentages in the area of about, some say about 3.2, others say about 32% of what has been recovered. But the important thing is that the Minister of Finance, who announced it, says that the payment is to underscore the commitment of the federal government to the obligation of its whistleblowing policy. But however, to strengthen the whistleblowing policy, there have been several measures that have been put in place. There is now what they call the WBU unit, whistleblowing unit in the Federal Ministry of Finance. And this is domiciled in the Federal Ministry of Finance, and it has representatives for several agencies. And the idea is to ensure that any information given through whistleblowing is verified, certified before it is followed up through. And if you are a whistleblower, you don't get paid until the information you brought is verified and the loot you gave indication to has been recovered, and then you get your percentage. And
just be careful, because yes, we have some persons are already facing trial.
Yes, I was going to add that in fact for the whistleblowing, they didn't add that if you give false information, you will find yourself in the dock.
Absolutely. Yes. Now let's return to Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper has as its lead story, anti-graft war, Judiciary not on board. That's attributed to the Presidential Committee. Judiciary not on board, Presidential Committee. And the photograph there on the front page of Daily Trust has a caption that says, Iranian policemen evacuate a child from the Parliament building in Tehran during an attack on the complex yesterday. 12 persons were killed in that terrorist attack. Indeed, one of the topics we had for our discussion segment yesterday had to do with global terror and what Nigeria's response should also be in order to fend off such incidents. Now, that's the photograph there on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper, and below that, 3 other headlines. Emir Sanusi, that's of Kano, sacks private secretary. That's on page 10. INEC registers 5 new political parties. And Boko Haram attacks Maiduguri, burn houses. That's on page 5.
Now, on authority this morning, that's one headline here. Senate passes Southeast Development Commission bill. I recall that last week it couldn't go through at a point, and some senators staged a walkout. But this time around, it does seem that the bill is having a headway.
No, the bill has not been passed. It has passed second reading and has been referred to a committee of the Senate. That is on the floor of the Senate. The one you are referring to was the rejection of the bill on the floor of the House of Representatives. But there are initiatives now to try and represent that bill. Talking about political parties, we now have 45 registered political parties. 5 were added to the tally yesterday when INEC announced Young Progress Party, YPP, Advanced People Democratic Party, ADPA. Then there's a New Generation Party of Nigeria, NGP, the All Democratic Party Movement, ADPM, and Action Democratic Party, ADP. You also will recall that there's been ongoing continuous voter registration. So far across the nation, 760,989 new registrants have been made by the Independent National Electoral Commission.
All right, Bayo. Yeah, I just wondered, for the 5 new political parties, I'm sure by the time we'll go into the next general elections, the ballot paper probably will be a mile long.
But the ballot paper is determined by the number of parties contesting the election.
You are not being registered because you want to be on the sidelines, because you want to contest election. I just wonder if we just take some headlines from the photo of the front page of the Punch newspaper. Yes. Below the photograph, you can see the agony of the parents of the children of the pupils who were kidnapped from a school at Ekbe. Of course, that's one of the issues we are discussing later this morning in our discussion segment. Parents of kidnapped Lagos pupils protest at Ambode's office. Ambode, of course, is governor of Lagos State. And then you have other stories there on the oil and gas sector. And then naval ratings torture, lawyer and wife demand release, plus, of course, the registration of the new political parties.
All right, at this point, I would like to thank Bayo Toyebi for being part of our show this morning, as always. Thank you, Bayo, for coming.
Thank you for having me, as always.
All right, you are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA. We'll take another break. The program returns in a moment.
change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, yeah, okay, ruler. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
So what's up, sweetheart? You really look like you're up to something.
I have a secret.
Okay.
I'll be going to Europe next week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like you have your visa, your passport, your plane ticket?
No, not that way. Some men are helping us. We pay them, they take us through the desert, and then we cross the sea into Europe.
The desert, the sea. Isn't that the route where many have died?
Yes, it is indeed a very dangerous journey. In 2016 alone, 4,900 people died while crossing the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe. Many were Nigerians. For the very few who survived the journey, they are forced into prostitution or other crimes just to survive. Eventually, they will be arrested and deported to Nigeria. Don't be a victim. Don't go this way.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
All right, you're welcome back. In line with the directive of the National Judiciary Council, the 6 judges that have been on suspension following corruption investigations against them resumed duties Wednesday. Femi Okeo has the report.
The sitting time for all judges of courts of records is 9 o'clock. And one judge that has caught a reputation for himself to be in his court at that time is Justice Adeniyi Ademola. But today is not a normal sitting day for him, even though it's time for resumption after months of recusing himself of his job because of the corruption allegations and corruption charges leveled against him. 9 judicial officers had been arrested at various times in the last quarter of 2016, but only 3 of them were charged to court. While Justice Nguta of the Supreme Court and Justice Rita Ofili Agjumogobia of the Federal High Court are still going through their trial and have therefore not been recalled by the NJC, Justice Adeniyi Ademola has been discharged and acquitted by the Court of First Instance. The federal government says that case is on appeal. But one striking thing about the whole episode is that the National Judicial Council now knows firsthand what it feels when people say justice delayed is justice denied. The grouse of the NJC is that more than 8 months after the judges were made to recuse themselves from office, no charges have been formally brought against 5 of them in any court, while they continue to live under the label of corruption, being on suspension.
We are not proud of our criminal justice system in this country. We're not proud of what is going on in terms of delays, in terms of all the problems that we have, lack of proper investigations, trials being protracted, and all of that. And that's why we are always talking about reforms.
Observers of Nigeria's judicial system say this is what thousands of awaiting trial suspects suffer in the hands of investigators, prosecutors, and our judges. Even though the whole process of prosecution may not be over yet for the accused judges, one hopes that the lessons would have dawned on the investigating agencies and our courts that out there are thousands of people who do not have the influence of being recalled to their normal lives, but are only waiting for justice as the only means to return to normalcy.
All right, thank you very much there, Femi Okewo, our judicial correspondent with that background report. We have guests with us here in the Abuja studios as well as from our Just Network Center. First, we'd like to welcome at this time a familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, Professor Maxwell Gideado, learned senior advocate, professor of constitutional law at Nasarawa State University, Kefi. Professor Gideado, I'm delighted to have you join us today.
A pleasure.
All right, and then we also have with us in the studios Okoye Obono Obla. Okoye Obono Obla is a senior special assistant to the president on prosecution in the office of the Attorney General of the Federation. Okoye Obla, pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Good morning.
And we also have in the studio Festus Okoye, a constitutional lawyer and civil rights activist. It's good to have you, sir, on our show this morning.
Good morning.
And from our Just studio, we are being joined by Dr. Garba Tetengi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and a member of the National Judicial Council. It's a pleasure to have you on our program this morning, sir. Dr. Tetengi, I hope you can hear us clear in just there. All right. We would have actually started with the Tetengi himself, but then we don't have clear signals from Jos. Kinsley, I'd like you to.
All right, yeah, that's right. I'm sure once the audio snag there is cleared up, the video is good, we'll return to Tetengi. But the background to all of this is very well known. We all saw what happened in the country last year, and then the various reactions to what occurred, and then what has happened yesterday following the formal recall of some of the judges who were earlier suspended. Now they resumed sitting, including, of course, Justice Ademola, who was at the Federal High Court. Gentlemen, let's begin this conversation by getting your respective views. What exactly is playing out? We know there are views out there on the street, but of course we have lawyers here with us in the studios and then at the Just Network Center. Let's begin with Professor Maxwell Gideado. What's playing out?
Yes, thank you very much, Kinsley. Now, my position on what has happened as far as this recall of these suspended judges is concerned is that I can see two things. One is the NJC, which is the body that is primarily responsible for appointment, removal, and discipline of judges at work. Two is the operation of the doctrine, of the rule of law at work, vis-a-vis the new Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 that is applicable in Nigeria. The NJC were prompted by the arrest or the allegation leveled against the suspended judges since October last year. And two to time they sat and then suspended these justices and told them to await the prosecution. Now, 8 months down the line, one was discharged, acquitted. The other, two are trials ongoing and they've not touched them. The other 5 or 6 rather, that have not even been charged. They're just sitting at home with that toga, of being alleged to be corrupt judges. Just to save them from all this. And mark you, the judiciary is a profession. That it's an office of dignity, it's an office of nobility. For you to keep justices out for this long without taking them to court, charging them to court. And we are also trying to implement the new Administration of Criminal Justice Act that talks about speedy trial. I think what the NJC has done is to come out and exercise their constitutional responsibility and duty in seeing that they appoint judges, they punish judges, and they remove them when found guilty. And at the end of the day, it is also the onus is on them to protect them. Because as a body that is charged with that responsibility, it will be chiding from its duty if it doesn't take this very step. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a step in the right direction, and it's a good omen. It should trickle down, to the other parts of the judiciary and other judges for them to know that what the agency has set, the example they have set, should not just end with the judges, but it should replicate itself all around the courts and in the entire country.
All right. Thank you, Prof. Now, let's return to Jos, where Dr. Garba Tetenge is. Good morning once again, sir, and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Hello.
For us to determine whether your audio is through to us here in the studio. Now, you are a member of NJC. How would you explain what has taken place? Dr. Tetenge, we're asking you to make your own contribution to this conversation as a member of NJC, as we have been discussing here a short while ago, that the NJC recalled the judges who, ought to have been prosecuted after they have been, tagged corrupt judges. Now the NJC has recalled these judges. What is your opinion on this as a member of NJC? I think we have really, Professor Dr. Tetenge cannot hear us, and I'd like us to return to Abuja studios here, and I'd like a constitutional lawyer in the person of Festus Okoye to come in here. Now, what is your take in all of this?
Well, I think that you know fully well that from the beginning of this particular incident, the Nigerian Bar Association was fully involved. One, the Bar Association fully condemned the manner in which the raid on the houses of the judges was carried out. Secondly, when the raid took place and some of the judges were sitting, the Bar Association was one of the groups at the forefront of saying that the judges should recuse themselves until the cases against them is determined. Now, after a period of 8 months, the Bar Association said, wait a minute. After 8 months, if you have not framed charges against these judicial officers, allow them to go back to their work. I think that there are, as Professor Gidado pointed out, there are so many issues involved in this thing. The first is that nobody should have criminal allegations hanging, hanging over his head for a period of 8 months without knowing his or her faith. And you know that part of the challenges we have in Nigeria is the challenge of rumor mongering. The moment you are arrested, whether you are prosecuted, whether you are not prosecuted, whether you are charged to court, whether you are not charged to court, it sticks on you that you are already a corrupt person. So it is a very, very serious issue. The damage for me has already been done. Secondly, I think that the NJC was right in recalling the judges. What we should have in this country is that before you arrest a suspect, you must have done your background work. You must have carried out some form of investigation so that the moment you arrest, within a period of 24 hours or within a period of 48 hours, you're already in court with the suspect. But a situation where you arrest a suspect, you keep the person, and then you start scouting for evidence, you start fishing for evidence, you start digging for evidence, or you start manufacturing evidence, is not part of the dictates of our jurisprudence and our criminal justice system. So I think that what has happened is that the NJC is saying, if after a period of 8 months, you have not filed charges against these judicial officers, what that means, practically, is that you are fishing for evidence. So let them go back to their work, because for these 8 months, the judges are receiving salaries. The cases before them have not been reassigned to other judges. So the one that has been taken to court, discharged and acquitted, should go back to his work. All of us know that the fact that you have filed an appeal does not state the judgment of a properly constituted court of law. Those who have not been charged at all, no allegations have been brought against them, they should go back to their work. If eventually you now have found the evidence you are looking for, you can still take them to court, because there is no bar to their being taken to court. But for now, let them go back to their work. But I do not agree from what I'm hearing that, oh, okay, the Federal Ministry of Justice and the prosecuting authorities are now waking up and saying, oh, we are going to charge them to court tomorrow. We are going to charge them to court next tomorrow, just because they have been recalled. What that means is that there was a calculated attempt to keep the suspects in suspense for this entire period, so that the moment they are recalled, then they will be charged, they will be handed to court. I believe that what should happen is that if the police, the director, the State Security Service, the EFCC, or whoever is in charge of this investigation, if they have concluded whatever investigation they have done, they should proceed. If, on the other hand, they have done their investigation and they have not found any credible evidence against some of these judicial officers, they should have the presence of mind and they should have the courage to go before the Nigerian people and tell them, we don't have evidence against some of these judicial officers. On the other hand, if they have evidence against any of the judicial officers, they should charge them to court so that they can begin the process of either exonerating themselves, or the prosecution can begin the process of proving the case against them. But to leave them in suspense for a period of 8 months, for me, is not part of our judicial process.
All right, Professor Sokoye, thanks a lot. Obono Bla, you've listened to the two guests who are right here with you in the studios. Let's have your comments.
I do not agree with them, with due respect. It is those who want to patronize judicial corruption that will take that position, with due respect. How can you say that a judge like Justice Ademola should go and sit because he has been acquitted by the court of first instance, when you know that in this country we have two hierarchy, of course, above the court of first instance or the court of trial? We have the court of appeal, we have the Supreme Court. As I'm talking to you, just 3 days ago, the court of appeal, Abuja division, invited us, by the council, to the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the council to the respondents, that we should appear in the court of appeal for the purpose of reconciliation of records of appeal. And we have done that. That means the appeal is entered, and the next procedure is for the parties to file briefs of argument, and then the matter will be set for hearing. So how do you now recall a judge whose case he has not been heard, the appeal has not been heard, it has not been cleared? That alone is enough for Justice Ademola not to sit, because there's this the allegation of being corrupt, of receiving bribes, is still hanging around him. In England, where we borrowed our legal system from, that will never happen. A judge should never be under criminal investigation at all. A judge should be as clean as steel. A judge should be like Caesar's wife. So a judge who has put himself, his integrity, his credibility, his career at stake by through criminal investigation, that alone is enough for that judge to leave office without even waiting for NJC to look at his, to determine his fate. He should resign from office. One of them is in the Supreme Court. When I was a young lawyer, I thought all the justices of the Supreme Court were gods because they carried themselves with dignity. One of them confessed in a letter to the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mahmoud Mohammed, that he had meetings with politicians to discuss a matter pending before the Supreme Court. And he was a member of the panel of the Supreme Court that was to head the case between Wike and the governorship candidate of APC. That alone is enough to end his career in the bench, discussing a pending matter with a third party. And he did not report to the law enforcement agencies. He did not report to the Chief Justice of Nigeria, who was his boss then. He waited until he was arrested by SSS, and then he now wrote a letter to the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Let me tell you again, the same Justice Ademola there was a petition, a very, very strong petition, that was written by aggrieved PDP members from Anambra State, led by Chris Uba. They were accusing him of writing 2 judgments in one case. That petition was dated 14th July 2016. It was received in the registry of the Supreme Court on the 16th of July 2006. As we are talking now, that the NJC has not looked into the merit of that petition. So this is what we are saying, as if the NJC is trying to protest on judges. I heard the judges, some justices were acquitted last week. One of them, Joseph Nebele, the petitioner emanated from my office. He gave an ex parte order in an election matter, and we lodged a complaint. I was even invited to be one of the witnesses. I went before the committee of the NJC, and I gave evidence that why do you give an ex parte order in an election matter? In that case, they went to court, the petitioner and the respondent, they are gone to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal found in favor of the APC candidate that was elected in Rivers State, and asked INEC to give her certificate of return, and INEC did. Despite that, this judge went ahead and issued an ex parte order, stopping this woman from taking her seat in the Rivers State Assembly. Do you know what the NJC said? The NJC wants that judge. I know of a judge from my state who also granted an ex parte order in an honorary civil proceedings, and he was retired. So the inconsistency we see in NJC, it appears the NJC is not at the same terms with the federal government to fight corruption, and we have to fight corruption, because if we have a corrupt judiciary, the Nigerian people will not have confidence in the judicial system. Investors will not have confidence in Nigeria, both indigenous and foreign investors. So we have to clean up the judiciary, and the NJC has a duty to partner with the federal government, to cooperate with the federal government, to save the image of the judiciary.
Now, staying with you, Mr. Koyo Obono, you know, the judges that spoke to us this morning talked about 8 months,
yes,
right,
yeah,
of no action. Right.
Let me tell you, Justice Ademola, we filed a charge against him before the Code of Conduct. NJC is aware. A charge is pending. The chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal had granted leave, and the charge was filed. I have also mentioned, Justice Ademola, that his case is not yet over, because the matter is pending before the Court of Appeal as we are talking now. The other ones, EFCC was investigating them, and some lawyers, 2 senior lawyers, are already arraigned in the Federal High Court, Lagos, for purportedly paying bribe to 3 of those justices, and the matters are going on. So the EFCC is on the verge, as I'm talking to you now, the EFCC has filed charges against them in the Lagos State Federal High Court, Lagos.
All right, Obono Obla, thanks a lot for your comments. We'll come back to you. We also come back to the other 2 guests, Festus Okoye and Professor Gidado. You've raised a number of very critical issues, matters pertaining to criminal jurisprudence, criminal procedure, what happens if you have an accused person or a defendant who has been discharged and acquitted, and the matter is on appeal. Okoye spoke to that, but of course we'll give him the opportunity of responding to some of the issues you have raised. You have also talked about persons who will appear to be patronizing judicial corruption on the basis of the points that they have canvassed. Let's go back now to our Just Network Center, where Dr. Tetenge is a member of the National Judicial Council. He's a learned senior advocate. We hope that the audio is clear now. Dr. Tetenge, I'm sure you can hear us loud and clear, and that you've also been following the conversations by the 3 guests here in the studios with us. A number of points that have been raised that, well, the 2 guests to Professor Gidado as well as Festus Okoye believe that the NJC took the right step. But just a moment ago, you listened to Obono Obla, who said, look, what the NJC has done is baiting judicial corruption, that there are a number of issues that the NJC ordinarily ought to have considered and then restrain those judges from assuming duties, resuming their functions as they did yesterday. What's your comment?
Hear me very well now. I hope you can hear me as well. Well, I must say that I align myself with the submission made by Professor Gidado, my colleague, as well as my very good friend Festus Okoye on this issue. Mr. Obla, I could understand, even though a lawyer, but he's speaking from a political perspective. Because if he's aware of the rules and guidelines that governs the National Judicial Council, perhaps he will not be so strict. And the way and manner in which he is talking about the way the NJC has been attending to some of this professional impropriety is definitely wrong. I think we are not here to speak about politics. We all agree that there is a need to fight judicial corruption, not just judicial corruption, but corruption in all its facets in this country. We agree also, and you can see from the professional part of it, that the Nigerian Bar Association has come out clearly to identify that it aligns itself with the executive to fight judicial corruption in all its facets. From its pronouncements right from the beginning, you can tell that the Nigerian Bar Association is doing its best in order to fight judicial corruption. Ordinarily, the Nigerian Bar Association, by its constitution, is supposed to speak for the judiciary. It's supposed to speak and condemn any action that threatens the independence and the integrity of the bar and the judiciary as well. But it has taken a departure, a little departure, in order to ensure that it is not, it's not found wanting in its constitutional role. But you should know that after 8 months, those are, just as my colleagues have already pointed out, if there are no charges against these people, formal charges presented in a court of law against these people, why do you keep them? Why do you keep them from performing their judicial functions? It is completely wrong. And as Festus has already pointed out, the fact that there is an appeal is not a stay. The judgment still subsists that this man is being acquitted of any criminal allegations. Now you wait until the Court of Appeal has made its own pronouncement that what the High Court of the Federal Capital had done was wrong. Then we begin to know what to do next. But there are even instances, exceptional circumstances, where you can even grant bail to a convicted person before the Court of Appeal. Not to talk of one who has already been acquitted of all criminal charges that were preferred against him. So that is the position of things. I think, Mr. Obla, you need to familiarize yourself with the working of the National Judicial Council. The National Judicial Council has also identified itself with fighting corruption. If you look at Article 6 of its National Judicial Policy, which was launched last year by the immediate past Chief Justice of Nigeria in April, if you look at Article 6, you will see stated clearly that the National Judicial Policy is geared towards transparency and fighting corruption. And there are strategies and also guidelines that the National Judicial Council has taken into consideration. It has constituted a committee, including the president of the bar, and they are working on it. These things are not just done on a daily basis. We have to know the kind of people that have been taken into the court of public opinion. That is the point that we are trying to. The issue of recusing the judges, you could recall that it was the Honorable Attorney General who made a case to the Chief Justice of Nigeria that it is only morally right that since the judges are undergoing investigation, they should recuse themselves. And the National Judicial Council agreed and said, okay, the heads of courts who were also members of that National Judicial Council were asked to ask their judges to recuse themselves until investigations were over. 8 months after the said letter, nothing was preferred against these judges. It is only fair that we allow them to do their work. Section 36 of the Constitution of Nigeria, subsection 5, presumes every person innocent until he is proven guilty. Why do we have to continue to prosecute these judicial officers if you don't have anything against them? 8 months after these allegations, nothing has come out of that. I agree with you that, of course, in other climes and jurisdictions where such things happen, that was why the NJC acceded to that request. That, okay, I cannot wear my professional attire, sit down in a court and decide a matter and go back to the security agencies in order to be investigated. That what will the public think about the judiciary itself? So that was why the reasoning behind saying let them recuse themselves until these investigations are over. But if you don't have anything against these judges, will they continue to stay at home without performing their judicial functions? The cases are suffering. And it is in the interest of the public that these people should go back. If you have anything against them, bring it. Nobody is saying you should not. And another thing you should understand is that the National Judicial Council's jurisdiction is only on professional impropriety. It has no jurisdiction with respect to criminal matters. So if you have brought a complaint against any judge, there are rules and regulations. The council inaugurates or forms committees, panels that looks at these complaints, and at the end of it, if they find one guilty or liable for any professional misconduct, what they do is to make recommendations to the appointing authority. And even before they do that, in order to ensure that that judge does not continue to sit, they suspend him until an action has been taken by the appointing authority. So I think the NJC has been doing its work. It's only fair that you should give credit to those whom credit is due. Let us try and sift between politics and legal matters, please. I ask that Chief Obla should try and familiarize himself with the working of the National Judicial Council. He is first and foremost a lawyer before he becomes a politician. So please, let us try and follow the rules. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Otetengi, thank you very much indeed. You started by saying that Mr. Obla actually was speaking from the political point of view. You cannot, I don't believe you can isolate the judiciary from the political entity on the practice of politics, because he did mention here that some of the judges were found talking to a third party in a particular case, and that means that they have deviated. Now, some of the issues against the NJC, cited by many Nigerians, is the inability of the council to make a plausible distinction, regarding the perspective situations of the different judges involved in this matter, which Mr. Obla tried to raise, trying to ensure that we understand what really is the issue concerning each and every one of those judges. What's your take on that, sir?
There's professional impropriety. Now, if you make a complaint against any judge, against the conduct of any judge, there are processes, there are procedures by which the National Judicial Council will look into this complaint. There are certain complaints that are not substantiated. In fact, some of them, they are even abandoned. Nobody comes to give evidence before the National Judicial Council. So what do? Some of them, after making these complaints, they become jittery. They do not have the courage to follow up. So what do you want the National Judicial Council to do in such cases? When you have such matters, the council will definitely dismiss the petition. You cannot find somebody liable if there's no evidence against him. But definitely, if you have evidence, because there are so many cases where the National Judicial Council has found these judges liable and guilty, and they suspend them, pending any action taken by the appropriate authority, either the president or the governor, as the case may be. But I do not believe, and if he has any evidence to show that there is a case where a complaint has been made to the National Judicial Council and they have remained indifferent over it, let him point it out. In any event, I am a member of the Nigerian Bar Association. I am not even a judge. So as far as we are concerned, we are only involved in the process of appointment.
the process of discipline is handled by other people. But I know as a fact that they also report to council. This is what usually happens, and we have privilege of looking at these processes, and we know the right thing to do. So Mr. Obla should try and familiarize himself. If he has any case against any judge, or he believes that he has a case that has not been given appropriate attention, he should draw the attention of the council to it. We are all there. We are there to also fight corruption. We are there to fight corruption. We are not allied to corruption. That is why we agreed in the National Judicial Council that the National Judicial Policy must be launched, and everybody must see that the Judiciary is also fighting corruption, or National Judicial Council is fighting corruption in all its facets. We have our limitations, of course. We are not an investigating authority. We have the investigating authorities. So, I mean, the National Judicial Council, as far as I'm concerned, is doing its best. If he has any case that he believes has not been given proper attention by the National Judicial Council, please let him draw the attention of the council to it. And I'm sure the council will do something about it. But let's not go on speculation. Let's not put the judiciary on trial in the court of public opinion. This is a sacred institution. We must respect it, please. Whatever we do, we must give it respect, except if you have cogent and direct evidence against all these judges. Otherwise, please, let's try and maintain the decorum and also ensure that we do not destroy this arm of government by unnecessary politicking. Please and please, that is my appeal to all who are concerned about the judicial institutions in this country.
All right, Dr. Tetenge, thank you very much there. You spoke to us from our Just Network studios. We'll still pause you in the meantime and then return to our other guests with us here in Abuja. Professor Gidado, a number of points have been raised, but let's perhaps one of the most critical issues here has to do with the fact that, okay, charges have not been preferred against some of the judicial officers, whose homes were raided last year and who were therefore on suspension for a duration of time. Is that in sync with the constitutional provision? Is that in sync with the rule of law? That's one aspect. Bearing in mind what Obono Obla said a moment ago. And then you also have to take, I would like you to also take a look at the issue that keeps popping up, even though both yourself and Okoye had earlier talked about that. Obono Obla is saying that, look, Justice Ademola's case, for instance, is probably sui generis. Even though it's been discharged and acquitted, in other words, you would say his case is auto for acquit. But his matter is on appeal, and he believes that he should, on that basis, not have been recalled. Does that alter our criminal jurisprudence?
Now, to answer the questions, let me take on the issue of whether what has transpired it's in line with the Constitution and our criminal justice system. The new Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, which came to give buffer to the provisions of the Constitution, is very explicit. Now, the Constitution, first of all, assumes a suspect to be innocent until proven guilty. That is the first premise. The Administration of Criminal Justice Act equally came to give some dignity, some humane face to suspects. By even now, if the Act even says we should derogate from the use of the term accused.
That's right.
Rather, a suspect should be referred to as a defendant, which is a paradigm shift from this idea of punishment and looking at the accused person as if he's guilty from day one when he's arrested. Some interest, dignity, and respect of the accused person be given. And this was what came into play. You arraigned justices of these various courts and kept them for 8 months. Whatever was the nature of the investigation, before even concluding to or arriving at the fact of their being arrested, you must have found some reasons why you have a cause to level this allegation against them. and even request that the NJC suspends them. It was done. Now, what it now behoves you to bring up these charges and have these people either arrested, tried, sentenced, or discharged and acquitted. Now, on the issue of the discharging and acquitting of Justice Ademola, it is a fact, and our jurisprudence is very clear about it, that as soon as a person is charged before a court and judgment is delivered, more so in this very instant case, it was even a no-case submission that was made. In other words, there was what the defendant's counsel submitted at the end of the day was that there was nothing at all that they could even respond as far as these allegations were concerned. So, and as we are all lawyers, if a case is dismissed at that level and there wasn't even any dispute as to whether there was some bit of instances you could say, well, the man was is really guilty of counts A, B, C, that would be justifiable. But to dismiss a case and discharge a matter on a no-case submission is a very weighty and indicative evidence that there was just nothing against this person. And if the EFCC were to be also proactive, they should have, as soon as the judgment is delivered, make efforts to ensure that this case goes on appeal and the appeal is heard as well on time. Because keeping him for maybe further 8 months while waiting for the case to be discharged, to be taken care of at that court of appeal, and probably even resort to the Supreme Court, will just be wasting this man's time when there's even a no case. It was even a no case that got him out of the court. So, to my mind, this is in tandem with the provisions of the Constitution, as well as the new move now towards ensuring that we say bye-bye to our criminal justice system in the past and forge on to see that justice is dispensed to every Nigerian.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Gidado. Now, I'd like to return to Mr. Festus. Now, all of you on this panel, you are lawyers, but me. So I'm speaking from the point of view of an ordinary Nigerian who did not study law, for instance. Now, you are the custodians and the interpreters of the nation's constitution. Yet, there's dispute when this kind of case now, plays out. And Nigerians are wondering why there's difficulty in taking a decision that concerns the judiciary by the practitioners themselves. Now, Mr. Obla is so clear, that the judges have different cases. The one he mentioned, he said, look, this man, was caught, having a discussion with the third party, which should not be in the normal practice of law in this country. Now, I'd like you to also come in to say, to look at the aspect of people not being prosecuted early enough, 8 months gap. That's what the NJC is talking about. Yet there are Nigerians who are awaiting trial for years, even without being tried and all that. So why the haste, Nigerians may ask, of asking these people to return to work when even one of the cases is in the appeal court?
Now, I think that we should, as much as possible, delineate the issues. One, the case of Justice Ademola. He has been arraigned before a court of law. He has been discharged and acquitted. The implication and the presumption is that he's clean. There is nothing sacrosanct about the compilation of the record of proceedings, which my learned colleague talked about. The Federal Ministry of Justice can compile those records and abandon the appeal. And the implication is that if they abandon the appeal, Justice Ademola will still be at home with a criminal matter hanging over his head. So, and they have not filed any motion saying, oh, stay the execution of this particular judgment. So the implication of that is that as of today, there is nothing against Justice Ademola, and there is nothing preventing him from resuming. That is one. Secondly, Professor Gidado has pointed out that constitutionally, every person suspected of having committed a criminal offense is presumed innocent until proven guilty before a properly constituted court of law. That is our jurisprudence. Secondly, Obla knows that our jurisprudence also says that suspicion, no matter how grave, cannot grant a conviction. That when you even gather your evidence has to be interrogated. It has to go through forensic inquiry to see whether it is evidence that is worth anything that can grant a conviction. That is the second one. My second issue is that constitutionally, when somebody is arrested on suspicion of having committed a criminal offense, the person must be taken before a properly constituted court of law within a period of 24 hours. And if there is no court of competent jurisdiction within a 40-kilometer radius, the person must be taken to court within a period of 48 hours. Has this been done after a period of 8 months? The answer is no. The challenge we have in Nigeria and the challenge we have with our law enforcement agencies is that they first of all jump in, effect an arrest, and after effecting an arrest, they will now begin to look for evidence in order to go to court. And when you begin to do that, you tie your hands. You tie your hands behind your back, because the person you have arrested, his or her constitutional right and constitutional right of presumption of innocence comes into being immediately. And he knows that the Constitution also says that even if you arrest somebody on suspicion of having committed a criminal offense and you have charged the person to court, that if the person is not tried within a period of 3 months, that the person must be released either conditionally or unconditionally. We are talking of a period of 8 months. Nothing has happened. Are we going to insist that these judicial officers should go and remain at home until the day the Federal Minister of Justice or until the day the EFCC wakes up and decides to charge them to court? Finally, on this issue, we see thousands of petitions being written every day. So the fact that a petition has been written against a judicial officer does not mean anything, does not presume anything. When you write a petition, you come and defend that particular petition. And I agree with Dr. Garba Tetengi that some of these petitions are abandoned. When you write a petition, you should go and defend the petition. So I think that what my friend Obla should do, and what some of our colleagues in the Federal Ministry of Justice and in other law enforcement agencies should do, is to advise that before you go in to go and effect an arrest, you should do your background work, do some preliminary investigation, so that by the time you are arresting, you have your facts, you have your charges, and you have everything ready to go to court, and not that you should go and effect the arrest before looking for evidence. That is not part of our jurisprudence. That is not part of our criminal justice system, and that is ambush. Judicial officers should not be ambushed. Judicial officers should not be stigmatized. And we should conduct things in accordance with the rule of law and in accordance with due process.
All right, Festus Okoye, thank you very much. Let's return again to Obono Blah. Obono Blah, of course, to listen to the comments. Just before you have your reactions, one or two issues for the benefit of our viewers. It would appear that we are using Justice Ademola's case as perhaps a touchstone for some of the illustrations. It would have been different if Justice Ademola were merely discharged and not acquitted. That's the necessary inference, because discharge doesn't mean that you've been acquitted. But it's also the point articulated by Professor Gidado, and at the point already also concurred to by Professor Okoye. If this matter was, if Justice Ademola was discharged and acquitted on the ground of a no-case submission, which means, as Professor Gidado said, there was indeed no case at all. But, so what is your reaction to all of this, well, and in particular to the points
I disagree with Professor Maxwell and my friend. It doesn't change the rules. In our notice of appeal, 7 grounds have been raised. We faulted the trial judge jumping into the matter at that level. Because if I raise a no-case submission, what you are required to do is give a short ruling. He went on to the judge, evaluate evidence, whereas there was no evidence from the other side of the defendants. So you cannot say because he was discharged in a no-case submission, our appeal is null and void. What we are saying, they should not use technicalities of the law or this notion that we should protect judges. That is what we have been doing. The lawyers are not truthful. They always try to protect judges. I have practiced law for 27 years. 27 years from the magistrate court to the Supreme Court. So I am not talking politics. 27 years. This is my first appointment. Well, if you cannot separate law and politics, they are interlocking to a certain extent. And we are talking about the confidence of people on the judicial system, because it all has to do with confidence. The judicial system is founded on confidence. So if a judge is under any sort of suspicion, then that judge must step aside.
No matter. Festus Okoye, respect to what Festus Okoye said. So Festus Okoye says, and we all know that's the rule, that no matter how grave a suspicion might be.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Yes. When it comes to the integrity of judges, that will not come into play. Because we are talking about integrity of judges. Why do we address them, my Lord? They are the representative of God. They are the small lords. So a judge should be as clean as steel. A judge should not allow himself to be arrested by the police or SSS and disgraced in the public. If that has happened, that judge, for goodness sake, should resign. What if there is no evidence whatsoever? What if it's a frivolous petition that has been...
Festus, it's still in flight. Let him land.
And I'm surprised Dr. Garba, SAN, is saying that this petition I mentioned against Justice Ademola, I have mentioned the dates that petition was submitted. On that petition, it is acknowledged, there's a stamp, acknowledged that it was received in the registry of the Chief Justice of Nigeria on the 16th of July 2016. Today is 8th of June 2017. Almost 1 year. The NJC has not deemed it fit to look into that petition, and you are saying that that petition is frivolous. The writer or the writers came to our office, the office of the Honorable Attorney General, to complain that, and as I'm talking to you, they have written to the acting president that they submitted a petition against a judicial officer 1 year, bordering on judicial corruption. They have not looked into it. What we are seeing is some certain categories of judges are protected. Yes, I have mentioned 2 instances. A judge gave an ex parte order on an election matter, a matter that the Court of Appeal has heard, and INEC has issued a certificate of return. A judge restrained that candidate from taking his seat. And then I mentioned a judge in my state, Cross River State, who was retired for issuing an ex parte order on an honorary civil matter. And then you begin to talk about stay of proceedings. It's not something to do with stay of proceedings. In this case, it's the integrity of the judiciary, of that judge, who we address, my Lord.
Gentlemen, thanks a lot. One point, we have reactions already coming in from our viewers. But one point that probably we'll need to clarify, because Obono Blanc made reference to that. He said that what they expected the judge of the Court of First Instance to do after the no-case submission was a ruling. Is a no-case submission the matter of trial within trial? Can't a Court of First Instance reach a final decision on the basis of a no-case submission? Gentlemen.
Yes. What I'm saying is, if the defense makes a no-case submission, what the judge is required to do, there are 1,000 precedent, judicial precedent, is to give a short ruling. Say, I disagree with you, or I agree. In this matter, the judge, despite the quantum of evidence, overwhelming evidence from the prosecution, he went on to evaluate evidence, which he was not supposed to do at that level.
Okay, gentlemen, as we said, Nigerians are reacting to this, actually, because as I said earlier, that some of us are not lawyers, but we also find it difficult to understand why we should have conflict among lawyers trying to interpret the Constitution. Now, Victor Ihosuma tweets, the decision is hasty. The NJC needed to confirm from the Attorney General their status. If some are charged and Ademola loses on appeal, what next?
All right, then we have this from Innocent Yawa James. Corrupt judges found wanting should not be immune. Now, judges are supposed to be the fulcrum in our quest to eliminate corruption and not to be shielded by sin.
And from change to progress, this is very interesting. NJC, judges, lawyers, and wicked elites continue their esprit de corps alliance. We are all suffering the consequences of corruption together. How many Nigerians are waiting trials in several courts for years in Nigeria without trials? We aren't definitely all equal before the law.
And Festus Akimboyewa has this tweet. Allegations of corruption made against the recalled judges wholly made them unfit for judicial duty, and their recall is wrong.
In fact, the judiciary is being attacked. Laban Biscuit Stephen says, over the years, the judiciary seems untouchable. Kudos to the Buhari-led administration for taking the war on corruption to the judiciary.
Dominic Oga tweets, as sad as it is, recalling the suspended judges by the NJC is a wake-up call for proper investigation and prompt prosecution by the EFCC and ICPC.
Now, from Festus Akimboyewa, Nigeria needs specialist legal advisors that can advise on strengths and weaknesses of corruption cases, such as the ones against the judges.
Abdul Karim Duro tweets, it's the same with our political class, yet we quote useless technicalities to support corrupt people.
Dele Jackson Solomon says, fighting corruption outside the presence of constitutionalism contravenes the rights of citizens in this country. Let's follow due process.
Change to Progress tweets, NBA should conduct an opinion poll on how Nigerians feel about the justice system. They would appreciate the precarious situation we are in today.
Now, Dele Jackson says, I strongly commend the reinstatement of the suspended judges, those who were never charged before any competent court of law after 8 months.
And then we have this from Kubana Bassi. Say the NJC is in error to recall the suspended judges, that they are supposed to be discharged and not acquitted. Anyway, that's what is right in there. Well, those are some of the reactions we can take. Let's go back to Dr. Tetenge, a member of the Nigerian Judicial Council. We are pressed for time already. Let's get your closing thoughts on this. As we said at the beginning, I mean, this is a pretty divisive matter. People have different perspectives. Even the lawyers here, Obono Obliged on one side, and you three appear to be on the same side. Let's get your closing thoughts on this. So let's put it this way. Probably one of the questions from the street probably will be this. Assuming the matter comes up again, indicating that any one of the recalled judges actually had his hands in the cookie jar, what will happen?
To fight corruption in all its facets in the judiciary. And cases of professional impropriety are also being looked into with all seriousness. If you have a matter before the Judicial Council that has not been attended to, all you need to do is to draw the attention of the council, and I'm sure they will do something about it. Let's not take the judiciary, it's an important institution. Let's not take the judiciary into the court of public opinion. Let's be sure of our facts. Let's be sure of our evidence before we proceed against these judges. No one, of course, is immune from the judicial process. It's impossible. We all know that. And let it be known also, not just the National Judicial Council. I know as a matter of fact that the Nigerian Bar Association, spearheaded by our own president, A.B. Mahmoud, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, is seriously fighting corruption. And it has a committee under the chairmanship of Yusuf Ali, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, that is working towards this. So please, let it not be taken that the lawyers or the judges are against the fight against corruption in this country. We are all for it, and we praise the President, General Buhari, for the initiative he has taken, for the bold step he has taken in order to fight corruption in this country. But we need strategies. We need management. We have to have the investigative authorities must have strategies and implementation strategies in order to fight this corruption. We don't have to take all these things into the court of public opinion. There are ways and manners that this corruption can be fought successfully. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Garabat Tengi,
Okay, well,
Senior Advocate of Nigeria and a member of the National Judiciary Council. Thank you for being part of our program this morning. All right, and gentlemen, as Kingsley pointed out, we don't have time. So I would like to, at this point, thank Professor Maxwell Gidado, the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for being part of the show this morning. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, and Okoy Obono Obla, SSA, to the President on Prosecution. Thank you for your being on the other side of the divide. You know, and of course the constitutional lawyer, Festus Okoye. Thank you also for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll go to the second leg of this morning's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
Forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, or the center of purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
TV Guide magazine is out with fabulous Fab Funke Akindele Bello, aka Jennifer, adorning the cover. She opens a secret not known even to her family. Find out the secret. NTA turns 40 this year. The challenges, the emerging trends in broadcasting, and the way forward. Weekend Dealer 2. Meet the team behind the biggest deal on NTA. Is food still the way to a man's heart? If not, what else? This edition is hot and juicy. Meet your star faces on screen. Entertainment, fashion, young minds, social media, and great personality.
This is idiosyncratic and heterodox.
Yes, Professor John Bull is on the radar. Find out what makes this program the rave of the moment on NTA Network. And for the Prof,
over and out.
TV Guide. Ask your vendors or book your copy at every NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. To kickstart our second issue for discussion this morning, let's take this background report put together by Omotola Omochola.
The thought of it creates panic. Not all who have experienced it live to tell the story, and for those who do, a great deal of psychological rehabilitation may help in overcoming the traumatic experience. For others, the scar is indelible. Kidnapping is a global challenge motivated by greed, poverty, and a need for settling grievances, among others, depriving others of their fundamental right to freedom. Until recently, it was a crime that Nigerians only read from other countries. Nigeria now ranks among countries with high occurrence of kidnapping. The monumental abduction of over 200 schoolgirls in Chibok about 3 years ago has done more damage to the already terrible reputation. No one is immune to this quick money-making vice, which has created a regime of fear where trust is a scarce commodity. From the poor to the rich, celebrities not left out. This situation has caused people to constantly look over their shoulders, whether at home, commuting even within the shortest distance, or having to rely on neighbors or nannies for care of their wards. As state and federal government take more stringent punishments like the death penalty for acts of kidnapping, the more daring it appears the perpetrators become. And school children appear to be the target in recent times. In 2016, teachers and students of Nigeria Turkish International School in Ogun State were abducted, and it took the state and federal intervention to secure their release. 3 school girls in Ikorodu were also kidnapped in 2016, and it was of national interest also. As if that was not enough, recently at Lagos State Model College, Igbonla Ekpe, 6 students were abducted by gunmen within their school compound. This has kept parents, security agencies, and indeed the state on the edge as the abductors demand ransom of 100 million naira. It is worthy to note that the same school was invaded 7 months earlier when it was reported that some teachers and 4 students were also abducted. Can Nigeria ever move from this situation to one where citizens can freely move and do business in their homeland? Research advocates poverty eradication and provision of job opportunities to curb the situation. But can that alone end kidnapping in the country?
All right, thank you very much there, Amotola Amojola, for that background report. Now we have 2 guests to discuss the issue. First, we'd like to welcome with us here in our Abuja headquarters studios, Chief Superintendent of Police, Jimoh Moshood, of course, who is the spokesperson for the Nigerian Police. That's the Force Public Relations Officer, CSP Moshood. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay.
And from our Lagos studio, we are being joined by Dr. Ona Aihomo, President, Association of Industrial Security and Safety of Nigeria. Welcome to the program, Dr. Aihomo.
Good morning, sir.
All right. Well, let's begin with you from Lagos, Dr. Aihomo. It's a new twist, as it were, to kidnapping that we had seen in recent years. I mean, we knew that in the past there used to be cases of the so-called bomo. But what we had seen in recent years, prominent persons, and foreigners were mainly the targets of kidnappers who sometimes derisively refer to their victims as bullion vans. But in recent times, it's like a recurring decimal that school pupils or students have become the easy prey for the kidnappers. How did this change occur from your perspective, and what does it portend?
Thank you very much, Honorable Sir, for that question. Well, I think we see a mutation, or we are seeing a mutation in targeting and in strategies by the bad guys. Now, we saw the success of Boko Haram, how they ruined this company's reputation by seizing those 300-odd schoolgirls from Chibok. And now we've seen Boko Haram seize a lot of kids from different schools, even not just the Chibok girls. Now, here down south, we have seen the serial kidnap that was enumerated in your report, in your background report, the BMJS kidnap, the NTIC, that is Turkish International School, and then the Igbonla 1 and now Igbonla 2. Now, what is happening here is that they have found, particularly from the Turkish school kidnap, that schools, one, they are rich, they are target rich. There's a lot of people to seize in schools, a lot of kids. And now when you seize kids, you elicit a lot of emotion. There's a lot of passion. So it kind of plays very well into the hands of these very demented, very useless set of human beings. In fact, Donald Trump said they are losers. Now, having said that, let's look at Igbonla 2, what they did when they went in there to seize the kids. That might answer the question you asked me, Honorable Kingsley. Now, when they went in there, they selected kids from parents who didn't have much means and said, well, these ones, government is going to pay for them. And if you follow the the trend of the negotiation with these, you know, really very evil people, you find that they've been insisting, well, the family first, they gathered 2 million together, and they went to Odogunyan to pay. In fact, they didn't show. They just said that was too paltry. The family begged to pay 6 million. They said that this is not crayfish they are selling. So apparently they think that the kids are for sale. Now, they said, go back to the government, tell the government to pay 100 million. That's our minimum offer. So the government of Lagos State, of course, has taken the position of any and every responsible government that we do not negotiate with kidnappers. And so we have a very serious situation here at hand. What has happened is that the kidnappers have changed their strategies. They say, okay, instead of kidnapping individuals and getting 5 million, when we do mass kidnap, because that's really what has changed here now, when we do mass kidnap, we have an amplitude of, you know, income. That means because they now price each student, they say bring 5 million per student. So if you grab 6 students, that is a 30 million payday for you, and it's really very despicable and very unfortunate. And this should not really be happening in this country at this point in time.
Thank you, Dr. Aihomo. Now, back to the studio here, where we have CSP Jimo Moshood. Well, change in strategy in the words of Dr. Aihomo. Kidnapping has become one crime too many. Now, from the security point of view, what would you tell Nigerians about this current trend of kidnapping in the country?
Thank you so much. The doctor talked about mutation. You see, at a point in time, criminals change their strategies and bring in new modus operandi in committing their crimes. And there's no doubt that kidnapping is cheap than even armed robbery, because in robbery, somebody will immediately raise a lot of what has happened, and the security will move in. But the Inspector General of Police, IGP Brian Putu Idris, is seriously concerned, especially about school security, because action plans have been put in place for the Commissioner of Police and the Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of zones and command to work with the school authority, those that belong to the state government, the local government, and even the private owned school, to ensure their security. That does not mean that when we have cases like this, we don't move in and investigate and ensure perpetrators are arrested. In the Turkey school that he has referred to, we've arrested virtually all the people that are involved because the safety of those in captivity is important to us. And when you are adopting strategies in preventive, we put in a lot of preventive measures. But for those kinds that cannot be prevented, we use detection to serve as deterrence to order and diligent prosecution. Those of Turkey school are currently being prosecuted. And I want people to know that for every kidnap case, we've resolved it. Those who kidnapped the ambassador, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Bagudu, were rounded up in Canada. They were promptly arrested. Those who kidnapped the Deputy High Commissioner of Sierra Leone were equally arrested. But we want people to know that there's people engagement that we are following on. And it is when we engage the people properly that they can come in to assist us. Because like the Turkish incident and the other school incident, we've discovered that there are informants even within the school setup. And that is why you know those who have kidnap value and those who doesn't have kidnap value. And that is why we want school to work with Commissioner of Police to profile their staff, including those who are laborers. Because among the suspects we arrested in the case of Turkish school students are people that spy on the school and people they sent in there that were cultivated by them to work with the school authority. And over time, they've studied the environment. And there's no doubt that the environment is swampy. That's an area between Ondo and Ogun State, which is a swampy area. They attacked the school, they bore into the fence, and didn't bring to light the need to be proactive by the school. We are putting in a lot to ensure that we investigate. And when investigation is done thoroughly to the letter, we use it as a basis to prevent further criminalities. But people should have in their minds that this era of Good Samaritan is over. Once you have an information, you don't hide it to yourself. Early warning signals occurs. So school authority too are to watch out for this early warning signal. When you see people around the school premises that are not supposed to be there, because this is a boarding school, and and it beholds on the administration and the police to work together jointly to set in preventive measures into place. I want to say on that here that the Inspector General of Police share in the pains of the parent, because we can see the angles in them, we can see the emotions and the situations that they are going through. It's very traumatic, and we are doing all our best to ensure that these children are rescued hot. You know, some of them are in captivities, but in very, very soon, we are going to have results in rescuing them. But I won't want to, for the purpose of their safety, say much about what we are doing to the public now.
That's right. CSP Moshood, thank you. Of course, we don't expect you to go into details of what has been done with regard to the latest set of kidnapped victims, but there's acknowledgement of what the Nigerian police has done in recent years. I mean, in virtually almost all the cases of kidnap, the police have, after the fact, gone ahead to either secure the release of the victims and then also arrest the perpetrators behind all of this. But there is concern about what has been described ordinarily as preemptive strikes. Why does it appear that the police often are reactive and not a step, as it were, ahead of the perpetrators? They take time to plan, and then they set out either by boat or some other means, to attack their victims. Why is the security apparently a step behind the perpetrators?
No, thank you so much. We are very, very proactive. And there's no doubt across the world, everybody will know that proactive policing or proactive security arrangement is much more huge, expensive than reactive. We are not reactive. If you go out there, you see a patrol team stationed in strategic locations, and the communication is effective. But it's on the mind of the people to know that they should continue to trust us at the working with, because all the resources we've recorded are based on the information provided by the people, and the Nigerian police force appreciate that. We are very, very proactive. I'm saying in the sense that you see us circulating even at the call number when people call us, but the consciousness of the people need there to be awakened. The ensuring security in the nation or in the state or in the community is not for the police alone, and that is why the IGP, when he came aboard, he set up the Eminent Persons Forums that was launched across the country for people to know that you are the first person to police yourself before the police will police you. It doesn't involve resources coming together by neighbors, even by school association. In the school, you have the parent-teacher association that are working on a regular basis. But this should go beyond this issue of recruiting old men to be in charge of civil security in our school. People that can recognize situations as they occur before it's overblown. Like I mentioned earlier on, of early warning signal, people that can move in aptly. Because when you look at setup, not only in the school, in most institutions in Nigeria, the person in charge of security is the lowest person paid in that organization. When you even do management meeting, you don't invite him. It's not material to you until something terrible happens. If you look at that school, for example, let's go and search for who is in charge of security in that school. You discover that such a person may not even have experience about what it has to involve in security. What are the signs and symptoms that you have to occur for? So, and that is why we go further beyond this to ensure that this Eminent Person Forum is entrenched, is an association of retired police officers, military officers, traditional ruler, even the artisans, and they are helping us in this regard. So the community,
CSP, just before, because we're getting on the home stretch of our conversation. Yeah. Just one point before we return to Lagos, because for both Nigerians and foreigners alike, when you read about negotiations taking place between kidnapped victims, guardians or parents or kidnapped victims and the kidnappers, there is a sense in which it would appear that you're actually talking about a legitimate contract.
No, it's not legitimate, and that's why at every point in time we have opportunity to talk to the public to discourage them from paying ransom. Because when you pay ransom, these kidnap for ransom gangs are vicious gang, and we are dealing with them. A lot of them are in custody, some are in courts as we speak. But a lot of things have to be done not only within the police sectors, including other social systems that's needed to be put in place to work together. Because when you are preventing crime, even the way you design your street and you engage the people is of important paramount. So we discourage people from paying ransom, because when you pay ransom, you encourage them. Even while we are parading suspects that have been arrested, we don't mention the issue of money that were involved. But most, like if you look at those who kidnapped the CBN's governor's wife, then they are all apprehended. And the ransom collected were recovered from them, and they are being prosecuted as we speak. So we are making a lot of progress, but we want that, especially this case in Lagos, the parent to be assured that their children will be rescued safely and hot.
All right, thank you very much. Let's return to Dr. Ehomo. I hope I got that correctly now. What is your take on the way and manner or the approach being put in place by the police with respect to either rescue operation or investigation to ensure that the culprits are brought to book? Are you satisfied with the way the security operatives are going about rescuing victims of a kidnap operation?
Yes, sir. I'm very satisfied. And the CSP in the studio there with you has said it all. I think Honorable Kingsley asked him a question of why is it that we appear to be more effective in the reactive realm. That is what we call detective realm. Detective realm, there are three realms of security. You have deterrent, you have detective, and you have corrective. Now, we want to really deter these bad guys, and that's where you get a lot of intelligence assets in there. Now, unfortunately, Decree 27, I believe, of 1976 took E-branch out of the police agency and made it then NSO. And then Decree, well, I forgot, Decree 19 of 1986, that's the National Security Act, now took NSO and made it SSS, NIA, and DIA. So what has happened is that the police has been stripped of its intelligence capacity. Now the police got its intelligence culture from the British, who themselves put their intelligence in place a couple of 100 years ago. So what I'm trying to say is that our police is really, they are handicapped right now because they don't have intelligence assets out there. Now, I know under Mr. Arashi and even Mr. Abubakar before him, they were trying to build back intelligence in the police agency. Now, the intelligence that we have right now, which is working very well, that's what Mr. Moshood is talking about, is a detective intelligence. That means to catch the bad guys, but that's after the fact, because I really want us to catch them when they are planning, like Honorable Kingsley asked, when they are plotting, when they are moving between the tricks, going to creeks, going to pick up these kids. Why don't we intercept them and seize them at that point before they now create horrors for people's lives? I just want to mention some names which you may not know. These names are Judah Agbausi, Pelumi Phillips, Farouk Yusuf, Peter Jonah, Isiak Rahman, and Adebayo George. These are the students who are still in the custody of these bad guys, these bastards. So it's really very unfortunate that we don't have their, I mean, I think NTA, you can help us. Put up their pictures. Let us see them. Let's know their faces. Let's humanize them, because I don't want to reduce this to just a discussion of police tactics and police arrests and things. These are human beings. They have real feelings. 4 of them are said to be very sick right now in kidnapper custody. The kidnappers have relocated them further afield, now to Ondo area, where it's going to be more difficult to get them. So I thank God for the police that they've now called him what they should have done 17 days ago. They've now called in the Navy to help them. The IRT, that's the one that Oga Moshood is talking about, that is Intelligence Response Team, is on ground. Now, at first, this investigation was left to Marine Police. That was a mistake in strategy. Marine Police is not capable of doing that. Nigeria does not have a Coast Guard agency. So that means our waters are porous. Any criminal can come in there. The Navy cannot police the coast alone. The Navy is a military force. They are not a policing agency. The Marine Police has no assets. So you see, it's a quandary we are in here. So now let me tell you the bad news, Honorable Kingsley and your friend in the studio, is that this thing is going to continue for a while further, because we killed Osi Ibori, that is the Baba kidnapper, the other day. Now this guy, America, has taken over, and it's America that is trying to build up his wealth now. That is why he's doing all these mass kidnaps. So we are in trouble for a while to come, unless the police can also do us a favor and kill that bastard too.
Dr. Onai Homo, thank you very much. There's a very sobering point you made in your closing thoughts. Would like to appreciate. I mean, of course, you also recall that a few years ago there was another kidnapped kingpin who was taken down somewhere in the southeast. His name was Osisi Kanku. All right. Dr. Onai Homo, thank you very much for your kind attention in our discussion this morning. Okay, now we have some tweets that have come in from our viewers. Well, let's run those tweets very quickly and then get the closing thoughts from CSP Moshood very briefly. Festus Akimboyewa, kidnapping children from Nigerian schools that should be places where children can feel safe and learn is dangerous and should be nipped in the bud. And
Excellency says they target huge amount of return from adopting school students and the pupils. Meanwhile, school owners should tighten their security.
Dele Jack Solomon, our leaders are yet to learn from the Chibok girls' experience. Security should be beefed up around our schools and suspicious persons reported. I think that Moshood has already spoken to that. He said
Kobana says nothing much but wicked means to make quick money. The Nigerian police should please strategize to minimize the evil monster.
All right, CSP Moshood, as you said, look at our time. We just have less than a minute to go. Would you like to see, for instance, more media focus on the trial of some of these persons who have been arrested on cases of kidnapping? Because after probably the first appearance in court, nobody hears anything again, and then nobody knows what's going on.
Thank you so much. To quickly answer your question, that's the focus of the Inspector General of Police now. He has indeed directed all Commissioner of Police to cover their arraignment and their trial in court by the media. Because you discover that people just feel once you are paraded by the police for such an offense, you are allowed to go. No, we are prosecuting them, so we are paraded to serve a deterrent. I quickly want to, if you allow me a second,
what is the update on the Ebola? That's the second.
Ebola.
Yes.
No, honestly, I won't be able to tell you this in public, but we are making significant progress, and we call on parents to be patient with us. We share in their pains, and they'll be rescued very, very soon. And I want to say that we brought down the vampire recently. A lot of his accomplices were equally arrested, and they're undergoing trial. And in this case, too, we are very proactive. The intelligence structure of the force is working. We have an intelligence unit, though like you said, the NSO, the state service, others were brought after the police force. But we have interactive, strong intelligence unit. We are more proactive than before. And equally, to round up, I want people to say Marine Police were not the first line of engagement. Marine Police are those who are taking the investigators, and they engage these kidnappers. Several of them were killed, and we have some suspects in respect of this kidnapping in custody that are up to 5 now as we speak.
Very well. CSP Jimoh Moshood, Force Public Relations Officer, I would like to thank you for participating in our discussion segment this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so that does it for Good Morning Nigeria in terms of the two topics that we're discussing. We only have time now to go over to the Meteorological Agency to check out the weather prospects for the rest of today.
Hello viewers, I am Joyce Ogunleye and I welcome you all to the weather forecast for Thursday. During the morning hours, we expect cloudy conditions to prevail over most places within the country with intervals of sunshine, except for the eastern half of the central cities, where there are prospects of isolated thunderstorms. Light rains are also probable over the stretch of the coast. And as we progress into the afternoon and evening period, we expect to see more active weather systems affecting parts of Katsina, Kebbi, Nguru, Gusau, southern Borno, and some parts of the central cities with isolated thunderstorms. Also, wider spread of thunderstorms are anticipated over the southern half of the country during the afternoon into late evening period. Please stay tuned for temperature details.
And that's how we conclude today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Do join us again tomorrow for another edition. I am Kirian Umayo. Have a great day.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Thank you for being with us today. See you again tomorrow. Before then, enjoy the rest of your day.